What's going on, shoe family? Kyle here from Does Kyle Dig It, the volleyball focused shoe review channel where we take signature and performance basketball shoes and review them for the sport of volleyball. As always, I'm your host, Kyle, both a volleyball coach and a volleyball player with a very unhealthy shoe obsession. And today, we're actually going to be talking about something kind of exciting. It is the lightest current offering for basketball slash volleyball shoes out there. That is the Li-Ning Ultralight 2025s. As always, if you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. Drop down in those comments and let me know what you think about the Li-Ning Ultralight 2025s. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Now, obviously, the big selling point of these shoes, which sometimes I normally cover later in the videos, is the weight of these shoes. Average weight of my shoes is 12.5 ounces. These bad boys right here are coming in at 8.4 ounces for me. And they feel every bit of it. They feel crazy light in hand, especially after handling some of like the heavier Adidas shoes, like the AE1s or the Hardens. My goodness, these things are light and they feel like a cloud in hand. Now, I did get mine in the Monsters University colorway because I thought that was really cool, but there is a ton of nifty colorways of this shoe online and available at wowsole.com. So, if you're looking to get something really snazzy looking and you want the lightest shoe out there, this might be worth taking a look. But let's go ahead and let's get started with that traction support. Now, on the traction of these, we've got kind of these real thick ladder groove pattern that is in two hot spots, one at the top of the shoe and then this kind of like, diverted heel pad at the bottom of the shoe. I definitely hate it when there's a lot of void in a shoe and there's not a lot of traction, especially here, right? In the middle of the shoe, there's zero actual traction and rubber going into it. However, that being said, I didn't have that big of an issue with these shoes traction-wise because the grooves are nice and thick and big. It didn't really pick up a whole lot of dust very fast. And when it did, it was an incredibly easy wipe. My only issue is just that, on the sport courts, the really dusty sport courts, they don't really lend themselves well to this type of groove pattern. And so I definitely didn't feel quite as good on the traction when I was on like a really dusty sport court or something. So overall, I'd say traction on these shoes, probably about an 8.5 out of 10. For the price on these shoes, not bad at all. Really, really good performance overall when you actually consider the price tag of these shoes and just how light they are on foot. Now, as you come up the shoe, we do have a really nice heel-to-toe transition on these shoes because of the way the heel is designed. However, also because of the way the heel is designed, these shoes felt somewhat clunky for some particular ways that you might be stepping on the court. And that's because it almost has like a squared off design here. It is very well slanted, so it does do well when you're actually making those heel to toe transitions. But if you're slightly to either side when you're actually making those heel strikes, that kind of more squared off feeling, you can kind of feel a little bit in the shoes when you do that. Kind of like the only real caveat I would say to the actual design of the heel. Real great heel to toe transition when you're actually going straight. But if you're at all coming in sideways on the heels of these shoes, you definitely feel a little bit more blocky and a little bit more clunky. Now, let's go ahead and we'll make our way up the shoe and we'll talk about the cushioning and the step-in comfort here. Now, this is kind of a combination. We've got a Super Boom foam that is wrapping the entire shoe with a light foam carrier, I believe, that it actually is surrounded in. And then you have the plastic exposed, midsole TPU plate that you've got. Not the springiest shoe, but because it's so light and there's not a lot of material here, it actually has a pretty good bit of bounce back. And that Super Boom foam in the carrier gives you really, really nice cushioning support. The only thing I would say is that there might not be quite enough cushioning and support that you do feel like you could bottom out the heel a little bit, and it's a little bit clunky going down. So overall, I would say cushioning and support of the shoe, probably around, again, an 8.5 to a 9 out of 10. I do like that. You've got the exposed boom all the way around so you can see it. It is nice and soft, and you do have nice springiness, but definitely the heel design on the shoe, you do feel a little bit clunky there and like you can bottom out. So not always the best feeling whenever we're talking about cushioning and support of a shoe. Now, as we make our way on up the shoe and we talk about that lockdown and stability, on the interior, we've got kind of like a little mesh strobe board with what is here in the tongue, it's kind of a completely detached single tongue with I would say a cushioning pattern in it, right? You probably can't see it in the actual regular video, but in the close-ups, you probably can. There is a pattern that is running the length of the tongue here where the actual cushion is. Anywhere where you do not see that raised pattern, there is literally zero cushioning in this shoe, and it is the thinnest type of little like thin material you could ever imagine. That combined with the very thin, flat laces, if you lace this thing down tight and it is not resting on one of the actual cushioning pads of this shoe, it feels terrible on top of your foot. There's really no way around it. And that's probably the biggest downside of this shoe. Other than that, you kind of have they're relatively cheap feeling materials, right? Obviously to cut down on that weight, but what you do get for that is really, really good breathability. There is fully exposed mesh here, and there is fully exposed mesh on the heels that really create good breathability in this shoe. I don't think there's quite as good of a shoe that I have that makes my foot feel like it is getting airflow than this shoe. So that is one benefit you get there. Obviously, the caveats are all of that negatives to the cushioning. No cushioning in the tongue. And then around the shoe, you do get a light cushioning pad that goes around the heel and the sidewalls, but it's nothing substantial and it's really nothing to write home about. So overall, I would say the lockdown and stability of the shoe, probably an 8 out of 10, 7.5 out of 10. Great and breathable, but the materials feel kind of cheap. There's not a lot of cushioning and support, and this tongue and lace combo is pretty abysmal. Now, for the price and how light these shoes are, not the worst thing, but obviously when you're comparing that up against, others like actual performance shoes, it's hard to justify wearing something just because it is so light and it is just a little bit cheaper when there are things that are almost as light and do perform really well. However, when I say almost as light, what I actually mean is coming within 2 ounces, because these shoes right here are a good 2 ounces lighter than my next lightest shoe. So I do say that there are close options in that there are a lot of shoes that I have that are 2 ounces under the standard or the average. However, these bad boys are 4 ounces under the average, and they feel every bit of it. So it's a give and take, right? Super lightweight and relatively low price tag, but you're kind of giving away a lot around the shoe overall that detracts from it. That being said, I will say I do dig these shoes. I totally understand what they are for, and they meet all the performance requirements enough for me that I wouldn't want to not wear them. Plus, I do love the Monsters University colorway. It's pretty cool to wear. What I would say is if you are a hitting position and you want a shoe that is the lightest thing that you can find and also is super breathable, and you don't mind like a little bit of potential discomfort in your tongue fit or in the actual stability of the shoe, then this is a great option for the price and just, like I said, just how incredibly lightweight it is. So Kyle does dig these shoes, but as always, drop down in the comments and let me know what you think about these particular models. Do you think that 4 ounces under average weight justifies wearing something that might not be quite as comfortable, or would you rather spend the extra money and get something more performance related that does have a lot of the same benefits, but even better while still being relatively light, but not quite as light? But that is the Li-Ning Ultralight for 2025. This has been Kyle from Does Kyle Dig It? Signing off.